Hey everybody, it's Matt Warrior of Matt Warrior's Metal Madness, and I'm going to be doing a new review of a new album by the band Vessel Decimal. Now, Vessel Decimal have released their album Conversion, which is the first part in a trilogy, of which the second and third part are to be released next year, it looks like. So with this band, I really didn't know what to expect. I listened to a little bit of it, and I was like, okay, it's like kind of industrial metal kind of thing going on. But when I really sat down and listened to it, it really clicked. And I would say that I've been listening to like industrial rock or metal for many years, various types. I've heard a lot of Skinny Puppy, Ministry, Godflesh, or some of Devin Townsend's projects like Strapping Young Lad, Static X, Fear Factory, and many others. And some of them I do like. I don't particularly like that much Fear Factory. I almost think that Strapping Young Lad were like Fear Factory done right, if that makes any sense. So I started to listen to the album, and it really took like 2 or 3 times to really kind of get in my head. It's one of those albums that kind of takes its time to get really deep. I was overwhelmed, I guess, by all the different things going on. It just kind of took me a while to really get through all the layers and stuff. Like, a lot of progressive rock or even some types of metal and industrial like that. So that's one thing that actually I quite liked about it, is that you don't really get the full grasp of it right away. And that's one thing that was cool about the album. Now, another thing was that a lot of the riffs really were distinct from each other, because the problem with a lot of industrial metal is that a lot of times they'll be kind of just doing this droning kind of riff, and there's just not a lot of stuff going on. It's like there was this band called from France back in the day that was really influenced by the band Voivod, and they mixed industrial and metal, called Troponin Pal. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but one of the things I liked about that is that they kind of made these dissonant kind of riffs and made it really interesting. Whereas a lot of bands, including some industrial metal bands I will not mention, 90s industrial metal band, one of the biggest ones, especially after their second album, they got really into groove metal. They kind of repeated a lot of parts, and it was just kind of boring. So Vessel Decimal are definitely not like that, and that's one thing that really stood out. Another thing that stood out is that the songwriting was pretty sharp as far as this type of music, and it's not really purely industrial or industrial metal. I would say that there's other styles of music, within it, and a lot of stuff. And it even concludes with a Pink Floyd sort of homage / cover, and that was interesting too. Pink Floyd are one of my favorite bands of all time, and it was cool to hear that. It was cool to hear their parody of dance music, basically. Did this kind of song that sounded more like club music, but it was, honestly, if it was a club song that I heard, I'd probably like it, because it was actually a pretty good song, so for that style of music. So it's like, well, we're kind of parodying this, but making it better at the same time. It's kind of interesting. And it was just, it was an experience. It's really more of an experience than just a simple album. I mean, you have to listen to it from front to back, and has kind of a conceptual thing going on, as I put in my text review of this. Really about like the, a lot of stuff about modern culture and modern society and modern, the social media culture and just technology and everything. I'd have to go through all the lyrics again to really get that grasp of the exact conceptual narrative flow of the album, but I will probably be listening to it again and reading along with the lyrics. So that was one thing that was really interesting as well. So overall, I would recommend this album, and really it has a lot of variety. That's the thing about it. It's like there's a little bit of a zaniness about it, sort of a eclectic kind of feel to it, even if it's one style of music sort of all the way through. The little quirks that are put in there, the little, whether it be, you know, intentionally humorous or some of the more theatrical parts of the album, or just, you know, it actually, now that I mentioned that, you know, I know Frank Zappa, like, you know, always used to put these like little xylophone parts in there. So Vessel Decimal, you know, they don't use a xylophone sample or anything like that, but they'll put these little synth melodies and stuff intertwined, just, you know, these random bits, but they add to the flow of the album. So I was reminded almost of like, even like Mr. Bungle, even though it's not as crazy as Mr. Bungle as far as like the genres that it explores, but it really does have that level of variety for the style of music that it can have. So Vessel Decimal, I would check them out. I really liked it. It was an experience, as you know, as the narration in the beginning does say, it's almost like a cult or something, or like a psychedelic experience, or a trance or hypnosis or something, you know. So it's kind of has all these little elements of stuff in it, and I could do nothing but recommend it. I mean, it really takes the genre of like industrial rock or industrial metal and wipes out all the bad stuff from it and just leaves all the good stuff in there. That's one thing that I like about it, because it's like you listen, oh, you know, another band, oh, here's another industrial metal band, you know, and they kind of have this predictable part, you know, and then they have some distorted vocals and, you know, blah, blah, blah. This band kind of deconstructs that, puts in some other elements, makes something new out of it. That's really important today. So I like a lot of music that, you know, people call traditional or, you know, done to death or whatever, but industrial metal still, and electronic music to begin with, is probably still a music that is worth exploring and doing new things with. I mean, we have the current synthwave thing, which is kind of more retro, but it can, you know, who knows, it could turn into something different. But this is really the indication of a future for industrial metal or industrial rock, whatever, you know, they want to consider it. And that's really a positive thing in our oversaturated market right now. So I recommend it. Give it 2 thumbs up, or whatever you want to call it. You know, give it, you know, maximum number of stars as far as, you know, new albums coming out. So check it out. I'll leave the links to my regular written review. You can read a little bit more about it, or, you know, check it out, and you can download it for free at the website. I'll see ya.